traffic, just at drop-off and pick-up times. We know that a lot of schools in Merri-bek really struggle with congestion. We also know that a lot of families want to walk or ride to school, but the dangerous zones outside the school gates often push people away from making that choice. So it's really about just creating a really hyper-safe, sustainable, healthy space in front of schools.
It's been absolutely brilliant. The kids are loving coming to school on Tuesdays. There's a real vibe and a sense of, joy when we start the day together. Lots of families are starting to come back. Our student attendance has increased on the days that we have open streets, and also we have less lateness as well. So it's just been brilliant all around.
We don't normally walk, we normally drive, so it's a really good incentive to get parents that don't normally do it, doing it. Once we're out and walking, they really enjoy it. It's so much safer. The kids love coming in here, playing, drawing with chalk.
This has been probably the highlight. Parents are saying, wow, can we do this more often, which has been fantastic. To see the joy on the kids' faces and to hear them saying, wanting to ride their bikes and wanting to have a play on the street's been amazing.
We have a huge percentage of our students riding to school. You can just see how successful it is. We've got kids riding, parents coming along, just really enjoying themselves. And it's changed my thinking. For someone who drove to work, bought my own bike and riding to work each day, it's amazing.
It's a fun experience. I normally walk, but today everyone's doing it, so I might as well join in.
It's also an initiative that residents and the local community can take part in. We want to see people coming out, having a coffee, we want to see people talking to their neighbours, and it's been really fantastic to partner with Bicycle Network and the schools to run these initiatives and really see, some healthy, happy street space.
Being part of Open Streets has been really exciting. We're interested in making people view their neighbourhood streets in a different way, being spaces for everyone and multi-use spaces, not just for throughways for cars.
And just listen to all this noise. It's great having everyone have so much fun around you and just being active. No, we're really stoked. We should happen every day.
This is very attractive for parents and kids to spend together. I think it's encouraging people to ride to the school.
I think it's definitely a good idea to get people active and getting people involved with the community. Because of this, it got a lot of me and my friends to ride to school every day. I get to see all my friends and talk to new people.
Well, they did putting the solar panel on top of the roof. It looks beautiful. And what is important is knowing the help that it could for us, for our energy efficiency. I saw everyone here in our neighborhood is putting solar. So I said to myself, I will think about it. I will not lose anything, so I choose to put it. And that makes a difference. It helps us when we receive the bill now. We saw the difference from the usual amount that we paid, so it went down, and I think it will help us. The money that is being not paid before, we can use it with other things, and I think the overall help of that solar being installed in our roof is really to save some money and also helping the climate change. And it will really make a difference for the earth, in a way, it is helping us. So I will recommend, don't hesitate to put this solar panel in your roof. It is a big difference to have it.
I'm here on behalf of the City of Moreland to start the official process of renaming our municipality. The Council received a letter from the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung. The Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung said, retention of this name for the principal civic body for a diverse community is untenable. The Council agreed.
The language of this land is not lost, it's still looking for its people. And this is one big step actually to bring the voice of the land back by naming the local language area. Language connects us to culture. It's how we learn everything, how we express everything. Now let's use all the wisdom, resources, capacity, knowledge, history to learn from the past and never let it happen again, and move forward and help the people that need it the most.
Pedestrians and bike riders, including a large and growing number of Coburg High School students, are at risk every day on and around Coburg's Bell Street Bridge at the Nicholson and Elizabeth Street intersection.
The area is notorious for traffic accidents. Recently, a Coburg High School student was injured by a car while walking in the area.
Footpaths on the Bell Street Bridge are significantly narrower than other bridges in the area, yet the Bell Street Bridge carries more traffic than almost any other road in Merri-bek, 47,000 vehicles a day. The narrow paths, along with high volumes of cars, trucks and buses, pose an unacceptable risk to safety and accessibility in our community.
We know that more than 1,000 people walk and wheel across the bridge on weekdays, just in the morning and afternoon peak periods. Even more use the bridge during the day and on weekends. We also know that students are worried about walking and cycling across the bridge. And for many, it's their only way to and from school, or to access the after-school activities and shops.
I've heard lots of horror stories about near misses and things like that, but most of what I see is just less than a metre in between the pedestrians and the cars, and 3 lanes of traffic going as fast as they want. It's really not a secure space because there's no separation in between the traffic, which is loud and fast, and the footpath where usually school kids are walking across.
I use the Bell Street Bridge almost every day, maybe 4 times a week, and it just makes me feel very unsafe. I myself have had terrible experiences on the bridge.
The thing is, I haven't seen one. I've actually been in an accident. We were just like traffic, waiting for the green light, and then out of nowhere, pow, the back of the car just gets slammed into by another one. We practically jump out of our seats.
It's one of the main connections to get me home. So yeah, I have to use it on a daily basis. I've seen some near misses. I've been in a few near misses myself, especially around the little island in front of the service station.
So I was actually involved in a car accident myself. It was in the rain, a lady lost control of her van and actually went into the barricade. So I got pulled back from that and then had to pull one of the ladies out of the car. I was probably in year 9. So that was pretty traumatic and pretty scary to see. That kind of put me off using the bridge, especially by myself. It's very small and it's especially after school and before school, there's lots of kids going to and forth, especially because there's a 7-Eleven there. So it can be pretty packed, and obviously after school traffic makes it really, really hard. They've already implemented different lower limits, but in a sense that doesn't really change anything because not everyone follows the rules. Our school has lots of active transport modes. We use the bike paths and things that surround the Bell Street Bridge, including Merri Creek. There's kids coming to and from every single day, and I think that it's super important that we make that environment more safer and more easily accessible for students of all ages.
That is why we're asking all parties to commit $250,000 to investigate and design safe and accessible active travel options over Coburg's Bell Street Bridge. We need this investigation to be completed urgently within the next 12 months.
We're ready for all levels of government to work together with the community to promote safe, active travel for the current and future students of Coburg High School and the communities of Merri-bek and Darebin cities. To show your support, visit change.org and sign the No More Accidents in the Bell Street Risk Zone petition.
I had insulation put up on the top of the roof. It was a good thing to do. When I read it in your local paper, and it said, it does help, and the lady was very happy. And I said, if she's happy, I think I will be happy too. And yeah, I think it's the best thing that I came up with. The difference that it's made, it's comfortable, especially in summer. I hate summer, yeah. Winter I can put a jacket on, but summer it's terrible for me. So this, keeps everything down nice and clean, comfortable for the summer. I have to go through the winter, but I think it will be just as good. Yeah, just have it done. The people who actually looked after the job and done the job, it was the best people that I come across. I felt very comfortable. I felt like if I was with my brothers. Yeah, so have no fear. They're great people.
Open Streets trials are initiatives to open the streets to people walking, riding, scooting, and close the streets to car traffic just to drop off and pick up times. We know that a lot of schools in Merri-bek really struggle with congestion. We also know that a lot of families want to walk or ride to school, but the dangerous zones outside the school gates often push people away from making that choice. So it's really about just creating a really hyper-safe, sustainable, healthy space in front of schools.
It's been absolutely brilliant. The kids are loving coming to school on Tuesdays. There's a real vibe and a sense of, joy when we start the day together. Lots of families are starting to come back. Our student attendance has increased on the days that we have open streets, and also we have less lateness as well. So it's just been brilliant all around.
We don't normally walk, we normally drive, so it's a really good incentive to get parents that don't normally do it, doing it. Once we're out and walking, they really enjoy it. It's so much safer. The kids love coming in here, playing, drawing with chalk.
This has been probably the highlight. Parents are saying, wow, can we do this more often, which has been fantastic. To see the joy on the kids' faces and to hear them saying, wanting to ride their bikes and wanting to have a play on the street's been amazing.
We have a huge percentage of our students riding to school. You can just see how successful it is. We've got kids riding, parents coming along, just really enjoying themselves. And it's changed my thinking. For someone who drove to work, bought my own bike and riding to work each day, it's amazing.
It's a fun experience. I normally walk, but today everyone's doing it, so I might as well join in.
It's also an initiative that
Good evening, councillors, members of the gallery, and to our viewers live streaming tonight's meeting. My name is Councillor Adam Fulford, and I'm the Mayor of Merri-bek City Council and the chairperson for tonight's council meeting for planning and related matters. It's my pleasure to welcome you to tonight's meeting. First up, I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting on the lands of the Wurundjeri people today here at council, and other councillors are calling in from other countries, Aboriginal countries around Australia, and also other countries around the world. So we'd wish to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people as traditional custodians of these lands and waterways, and would also like to pay our respects to their elders past and present, as well as to all First Nations communities who significantly contribute to the life of this city. This council meeting is being recorded and web streamed live to council's website and Facebook. This recording will also be available as video on demand. Gallery attendees are advised that they'll be recorded during the meeting. A reminder that as councillors, we will act in accordance with the Councillor Code of Conduct, which will support the principles of leadership and good governance that secures public confidence in the office of councillor. In the event of an emergency or disruption, we may be required to take action to ensure the safety of attendees. For members of the gallery and councillors attending in person, please follow the directions issued by council staff and security officers. Thank you for your understanding and cooperation. I'd like to introduce the other councillors in attendance tonight. In person, we have Councillor Angelica Panopoulos.
Good evening.
And online, we have Councillor Lambros Tapanos, who is a Deputy Mayor.
Good evening.
We have Councillor Helen Davidson.
Good evening, everyone.
Councillor Helen Pavlidis.
Good evening.
Councillor Monica Hart.
Hello, everyone.
And Councillor Mark Riley. We also have... Oh, sorry, Mark. Sorry to cut you off. We also have approved to attend online tonight Councillor Anna-Olivia Carly-Hannon, and we've received apologies from Councillor Oscar Yildiz and Councillor James Conlon. And I think Councillor Bolton should be joining us shortly in person. I'd also like to introduce Mark Hughes, the Acting Group Manager, City Development, and members of the Urban Planning team. I'll now move on to... Sorry, apologies, I just note that I'll move on to apologies. Councillor Oscar Yildiz and Councillor James Conlon have submitted their apologies. On to disclosures of conflict of interest. Councillors, are there any conflicts of interest to declare this evening? No? Well, then we'll move on to the confirmation of minutes of previous meetings. Councillors, could I please have a motion for the confirmation of the minutes of the council meeting for planning and related matters held on 25th of October 2023? Yeah, moved by Councillor Angelica Panopoulos, seconded by Councillor Mark Riley. All those in favour? Great, believe that's unanimous. Before we move on to the reports for consideration, I will now outline how this council meeting for planning and related matters will run. For the item in relation to a planning permit application, the relevant planner will introduce the report and officer's recommendations. I will then give objectors the opportunity to make their submission, and after this time, the applicant will be given the opportunity to speak. If you are making a submission, please clearly state your name for the record. You are requested to present viewpoints clearly and concisely on why you support or oppose the planning application. Please do not repeat what earlier speakers have said and keep the discussion focused on relevant issues and points not previously raised. If you're opposed to the planning application, would you please inform the meeting why you are opposed and suggest an alternative approach which would satisfy your concerns. Please use this opportunity to focus on your concerns rather than matters of detail in the officer's report. Please note that there's also a limit of 3 minutes for each objector and the permit applicant, but as chairperson, I reserve the right to increase or reduce the time available to any speaker. We'll move on to item 5 of the agenda, presentation of reports. We have 2 reports this evening. The first report is 5.1 City Development Activity Report, September quarter 2023. Does any councillor have a conflict of interest to disclose? Nope. Councillors, sorry. Councillors, if there's no conflicts of interest, could I please have a motion? All right. Councillor Panopoulos, do I have a seconder? Got Councillor Riley online. Does the mover wish to speak?
I'll take it as read.
And the seconder?
Just to say that the indicators there are looking very good in terms of some of the improvements over time on the timeliness of our processing of those applications. That is to thank the officers for their work in that regard. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Councillors, is there anyone else who wants to speak to motion 5.1? No. As there's no further debate, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? I declare that motion... sorry, does the councillor have their hand up? No, sorry, that's right. I declare that motion carried. The next item we have this evening is item 5.2, 31 Winifred Street in Oak Park, planning permit application NPS 2023-334. Does any councillor have a conflict of interest to disclose? No. Given that, I will ask Houston Watt, Urban Planner, to present the report.
Good evening, councillors. I'm Houston Watt, Urban Planner at Merri-bek. So this is a planning application at 31 Winifred Street, Oak Park, for the construction of 5 double-storey dwellings and the waiver of a visitor car space. The site is located on the eastern side of Winifred Street, 350 metres from Pascoe Vale Road. The locality is an established residential area that is mixed in character, consisting of detached single dwellings and a number of modern-style multi-dwelling developments. The site is currently occupied by a single-storey brick dwelling with tiled roof. That's the photo on the far left. And the adjoining sites consist of a single-storey dwelling to the east, which is 29 Winifred Street on the right, and a 3-dwelling development to the west, which is 1/33 Winifred Street, Oak Park in the central. The site is located within the Neighbourhood Residential Zone 1, which is an area identified for minimal housing growth in the planning scheme. Key planning controls: a planning permit is required pursuant to the zoning of the land and the car parking provisions of clause 5206. Details of the proposal consists of 5 double-storey dwellings in a tandem arrangement, which include ground floor living areas and rear open space areas. Each dwelling is provided with 2 off-street car spaces, with access provided via a common driveway along the eastern boundary. The development incorporates a modern design, utilising a skillion roof form to each dwelling. As mentioned before, the proposal also seeks a waiver of a visitor car space. The application was advertised and received 15 objections and 1 letter of support. The main issues raised within the objections related to traffic, car parking and vehicle access, overdevelopment, neighbourhood character, bin placement. Following that, a planning and information discussion was held on the 24th of October 2023 and was attended by 5 objectors, a councillor and 2 planning officers. Following the PID, discussion plans were prepared by the applicant and were circulated to all objectors. These plans sought to address some of the objectors' concerns, namely providing a visitor car space. It's important to note that the application was not amended. The purpose of the discussion plans were to inform future planning conditions or potential conditions. So subsequently, these discussion plans form part of the conditions contained in tonight's agenda, namely Condition 1A. Moving on to the key considerations. The Council Officer's assessment of the proposal has determined that development is an appropriate planning outcome. In particular, the proposal is highly compliant with the requirements of Clause 55 as they relate to off-site amenity impacts in addition to on-site amenity considerations. This includes site coverage, permeability, and side and rear setbacks. The contemporary design responds to the newer development occurring within the locality. Adequate vehicle access and manoeuvrability is achieved, which allows for vehicles to exit the site in a forward direction. Additionally, subject to conditions of the recommendation, including implementing the changes shown on the discussion plans prepared by the applicant, the development is compliant with the requirements of the Merri-bek planning scheme, including the relevant car parking provisions and the number of car parks required to be provided. It is therefore Council Officer's recommendation that a notice of decision to grant a planning permit be issued, subject to the conditions contained in tonight's agenda, including implementing the changes shown in the discussion plans, which includes the provision of a visitor car space, increasing the permeable space for the required canopy trees in each dwelling, and changes to the waste management plan requiring collection to occur on non-council days. Thank you.
Thank you, Houston. We have 4 objectors who've indicated they wish to speak this evening. First up, we have Antonio Bonifazio in person. Antonio. And Antonio, just when you're at the lectern, make sure the green light is on so the microphone's working.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. First of all, good evening, everyone. Yeah, I'm here to actually point something out that very important to the local community. We have a lot of traffic, as you well heard before, but one of the main things that I've discovered is that I did ring the Melbourne Water because I was concerned about sewage. Now, in that property, I was told by Melbourne Water that there is a sewage pipe right underneath it. And if I may pass this through to you people, you'll see exactly where the pipe would be. It'd be right in the middle of the unit. And I will suggest there now, the reason why that I'm very concerned about this is because, not for me, for the locals, because what's happened is that at number 29 there was a problem with the sewage about 3 months ago, blocked. The Melbourne Water came along, and there's a pit. Whether people know it or not, it's 35 metres from the front of the fence, right alongside the fence. There's a big pit down there, and I know that because the guy that owned that place, the last person, was Ian Forter. Now, I know him, I've been in the property, I know it very well. And there's a big pit, 660 millimetres round, and that was the only way that they were able to fix up the problem with the problem with the sewage next door at 29. Now, my concern is that if that services a lot of people, I can't understand how the council actually even considering about having this saying, let's get it on here and talk about it, whether we're going to, because nothing. And I have spoken to the guy a couple of days ago, the chappie that is looking after that project, and I said to him, look, I said, you know what? I said, do you realise, I made him aware of it, I said, do you realise there's a sewage pipe going through there? I said, have you got permission for that? He said, no. Well, I said, well, you know what? I said, how can you go to what's that? I said, that means that if you're going to get knocked off, that, the people were going to say, the Melbourne Water says, look, can't do it. What's the use of going tonight and saying, can you approve it? Because it hasn't been they didn't even go to the trouble of going contacting the Melbourne Water to find out where, if there was any problems with that. So my
Antonio,
concern is that
if you could,
there's definitely one there. There's definitely one there, and you've got to really think about it, what you're going to do about that, or what they should do about it. But I don't believe that that the council should go ahead with this tonight, to be honest with you, because I can't understand how the council
Antonio, sorry, you've
tries
gone
to
past the
approve
3 minutes.
to approve it before you even know whether they're allowed to do it. So I said to the guy, you'll have to cut all your what's name up and draw it again. So why go through all this?
Thank you, Antonio. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Antonio. Next we have Shauna Marie Wilson, who is attending online. So when Shauna Marie has entered the meeting, she will have 3 minutes to address council. Welcome. Go ahead, Shauna Marie. Can you hear us, Shauna Marie? You're on mute, so we can't hear you at the moment. Shauna Marie, can you hear us? Yes, so if you just unmute yourself, you have 3 minutes to address Council. Sorry, Shauna Marie, you're still on mute, so we can't hear you. Yes.
Now, I'm off mute. You can hear me now?
Perfect, we can hear you. Your 3 minutes has started. Go ahead.
Okay. Yes, I still support the application. I've read through the officer's report. I agree with much of the material in the report. I was just interested in the site permeability. There's a number of site permeability conditions proposed. It's quite common with these type of sites when completed, in my experience, that people then subsequently pave or concrete the backyard. So I would just seek that, if approved, yes, that the additional condition imposed that no lot owner may pave or cement the backyard except with approval of the responsible authority. And also with each of the lots that the rainwater storage be increased to 3,000 litre per lot, bringing the total to 15,000 litres for the site. Otherwise, the proposal is unremarkable. I see there's no unreasonable amenity or character impacts, and agree with the council officer's recommendations for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Shauna Marie. I might just ask the acting manager, acting group manager, Mark Hughes, to respond.
Thank you. The planning permit as recommended, or the planning permit recommended, include condition 2, which require that the development must be constructed and remain in compliance with the planning permit and endorsed plans, and that would be inclusive of the permeable area. With respect to increasing the amount of water storage, that's been considered by ASD engineers and our drainage engineers, and the amount of water retention for the purposes of stormwater retention, also ASD purposes, is considered sufficient for this development.
Thank you, Mark. And thank you, Shauna Marie, for attending and sharing your views with us. We don't have Damien online? Oh, Damien's in person. Oh, okay, sure. Yeah, okay, yeah. We can call Damien up. Yeah, great. Yeah, so Damien Jess is in person, and Damien, if you're able to come to the lectern, please do.
I'll just sit on the table if that's all. Yeah, wherever's. And if I can move the lectern. Yeah. So you're able to grab the mic?
Yeah.
Just spin it. Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Damien Jess from Unit 3, 33 Winifred Street, the adjoining property to 31. First of all, I'd like to say I'm not against development around the area, and we need to provide more livable accommodation for everybody. And secondly, I'd like to thank the councillors here tonight who have given me some time today to discuss the proposal and air my concerns with what's being proposed. But I'll address my concerns very quickly. I'm not going to take up my 3 minutes, I hope. We live in Oak Park in an area that's classified as minimal change for development. If you're replacing three-bedroom dwelling home with a complex that includes 17 bedrooms, that's not modest. and that is not minimal in any reasonable person's mind. Simple. As claimed by the applicant, the block may be able to accommodate the 5 units, but I could design it to accommodate 7, and that wouldn't be in character of the local area either. So where do we stop? And that's what the minimal change requirement or provision is supposed to do. It's to stop over development and excess development of blocks that are in the zone of minimal change. It doesn't provide sufficient architectural articulation and doesn't fit in with the streetscape. And I know that's of importance to VCAT. And it will not in any manner suit the existing streetscape of Winifred Street. The characteristic of Oak Park and Winifred Street in particular is the open, green landscape for the enjoyment of residents. This proposal does not provide this character for the residents who will purchase the properties. There's very little open area in the backyards and little side setbacks exist in the application. It may meet footprint requirements of the regulation, but it's out of character for the area. There's no similar developments of 5 units on a block of this size exist in the immediate area. And I don't mean by that a proposal to approve a 5-unit development in some other part of Merri-bek should be relied upon as a precedent for this particular location. You might be able to do it somewhere else, but you've got to look at the local area, not Merri-bek. The role of council is to ensure the developments are appropriate to the immediate area, not a number of kilometres away. And that's the point I'm trying to make. You might have approved them for Moreland, you might have approved them for Coburg, you might have approved them for Pascoe Vale. Doesn't mean that you keep doing the same thing over and over again.
Damien, just note that your 3 minutes has passed, so just if you could conclude.
If this proposal is approved, there'll be 5 units at 31, 17 bedrooms, 3 units on 33, 10 units, 10 bedrooms, I'd live there, 4 units on 35, 16 bedrooms, replacing 9 bedrooms.
All right, Damien, I'll ask you to just conclude.
In addition, there was a bus stop in the front of the building, and it joins 31 and 33. There's no car parks. They've taken out 3 on our side, 3 on the other side. It's just simply too much traffic on Winifred Street. I invite you all to go down to Pascoe Vale Road and watch the traffic getting out of Winifred Street.
All right, thank you, Damien.
I suggest you observe there was a real danger of foot traffic.
Damien, you've gone a minute over, and I appreciate you sharing.
And the owner of Winifred Street runs of 29 Winifred, runs a day centre, approved by the council.
Okay. All right, thank you,
The
Damien.
children and the danger for the parents dropping those children off is significantly increased. And you also haven't addressed
Damien, please.
the waste collection. I don't care what you say about it's put in discussion plans. They're not approved. They're not part of the discussion tonight.
Thank you, Damien. We will now move on to our next resident who's here to speak in objection. I believe we have Marinella Salafia here in person to present on behalf of herself and Lucita Salafia. Is that right? Yes. Thank you. Welcome, Marinella.
Actually, I should have said, I actually had 6 minutes.
Actually, yes, because you were speaking
I was speaking
for
on
a
behalf of
second.
Linda Rumble, so I've got 6 minutes, thank you.
Yeah, actually, if that would be, I forgot to mention that.
So, yeah, if I could finish off. Thank you very much.
We didn't have that on record, sorry, and you have gone a minute over, so I'll give you up to 2 more minutes, and then please respect that time.
What?
I'll give you up to 2 more minutes.
Oh,
Yeah.
Thank you very much. You're very generous, Councillor. Now, the discussion plans, the applicant has modified the original plan, which I don't know what we're discussing tonight. Is it the modified, the original? Houston couldn't answer the question. I thought we're going to just talk about the amended. They don't address my needs or my concerns or the local residents' concerns. They're going to put a car park in, which is at the detriment to a two-car garage. They're going to put in tandem. There's already problems with getting in and reversing and there's 3-point turns, and one of the traffic management report said there's sufficient room to, and most cars have got reversing cameras. Not all of them. Not all of them. Some councils don't have them, I've been told. So that's just to cover the requirement. It's not a realistic result. It's not a realistic outcome. And then they're going to use a private bin collection. How long is that going to last for? What's to stop them from the body corporate going to council and saying, oh, can you start picking up our bins because it's more expensive than getting the local council bill? Then where does all the bins go? It's just overdevelopment to the extreme. So it's a gross overdevelopment, does not comply with the minimum change zone of the area. It doesn't fit with the local character. It doesn't fit with the streetscape in Winifred Street. The roof line is not contemporary. It's totally different to everything else we're going to be, that's in the street. It may sit within the criteria set for the planning guidelines, but that doesn't make it right. This is an opportunity for council to listen to local residents' concerns and to actually represent us. Not
Thank you, Damien.
Make a stand.
Damien, you have now spoken for 6 minutes, which is equivalent of 2 people's time of 3 minutes. And Damien, I'd like you to finish up, please.
Okay,
we have Marinella, who is here to attend, another resident, to participate in her local democracy.
Just remember, if I can take it to VCAT, so can you blokes. You should start sticking up for us.
Thank you, Damien. All right, Marinella, I invite you to address the meeting. Thank you, Marinella.
I don't know how loud this is. I'm speaking for Mum as well, so I don't know if hopefully won't take 6 minutes, but yeah, just me, Mum.
Generally don't do that, but yeah, I'll let you speak for, yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry? All right. Good evening, councillors. My name is Marinella and I live in 29 Winifred Street with my mum. This directly neighbours 31 Winifred Street, so I've grown up in the area. As I've mentioned in my email earlier this week, and thank you to Sue and Mark for your acknowledgement, I also do acknowledge that this could be a losing battle, but I do oppose this development. I don't oppose to the development. I don't oppose to development. I just oppose to the number of dwellings, and I hope you amend the application and decrease the number. Ideally, I would like to see three dwellings, each with a double garage and a visitor space. The developers have written that they are compliant and meet the standards, but it doesn't make it right and it doesn't mean it meets the community standards, because at the end of the day, they are not the ones that are going to be living there and using the street to drive in and out of Oak Park. Contrary to the report, I would like to highlight that it is an unacceptable development and it does not fit with the neighbouring character. To my knowledge, redevelopment sites within the area have a maximum of four dwellings for the area and size. This could be an exception on Ethel Street, which has a block of 4, but it has a double block. 5 two-storey dwellings far exceeds the limit. 35 Winifred Street is a corner block and they are developing 4 units. 5 is causing an uproar and distress to the community, obviously enough for it to be a discussion, or enough for it to have a discussions meeting. Admitted in the report, the use of a skillion roof is uncommon for the streetscape. It's stated it will not impact local traffic network. It already does. It's already causing traffic problems and issues. This is the biggest discussion point on the Facebook community page. This morning, both excavators had to assist me in leaving my own home. Winifred Street isn't just a street off the main road, it's also the first street into Oak Park from the city. It is greatly utilised, therefore already dense and usage by the whole community. And this development will add 10 additional vehicles. Let's add a further 16 from the development of 26 and 35 Winifred Street, resulting in 26 additional cars. I subtracted 4 cars as 26 and 35 Winifred Street aren't going to have more than 4 dwellings on it. I would also like to highlight the report is incorrect and does result in removal of on-street public parking spaces. The proposal does not satisfy car parking design standards in terms of providing an area at the front of the site for vehicles to pass one another. However, apparently it's acceptable because only 20 car trips are expected to be generated a day, which is a relatively low volume, the report states. 20 trips for the area is high. 10 trips is even high. So I don't know who comes to the conclusion that 20 trips is low or high. Amending a double garage to a single garage to allow the area to be called a visitor space is only a loophole, as it will be used by the occupants anyway. I go visit friends on Devon Road, and when I want to use their visitor car park, it's used by the residents. You must also take into consideration that a household has a minimum of 2 cars. That's why I would like to see each dwelling have a double garage and a visitor space. This will also prevent cars being parked on the street, causing traffic. I'll just skip that because of time. My mum, Lucida, is an educator for Merri-bek Family Daycare for over 20 years. Currently the second longest serving educator. Our concerns, as well as the families, is the safety and privacy of the children. The more people on a property, the higher the risk. Glazed windows is not enough. The first floor windows of dwellings 2 to 5, will be overlooking my property. There are childcare requirements when building next to a childcare surface. I ask that this be investigated before approval to ensure the council and developers lawfully meet childcare building guidelines. I ask the windows facing into my property be removed and replaced with skylights. Properties that surround schools and childcare don't have windows facing them to ensure children are not watched. Utilising private waste collection to limit the number of bins required on site suggests it's an overdevelopment, as each house can't even have their own bin. Population is increasing, waste is increasing, yet the people on this block can't even have their own bins. Is this a lifetime binding service, or can they opt out any time to council collection? I've got like 45 seconds.
Ask you to come to your conclusion, thank you.
Yeah. All right. As I've said, I accept that we are a growing population and I'm not against development. One day I'm going to develop my property, but I'm not greedy, and it will be a dual occupancy built because I want it to be a family home where 2 cars can be parked in each home and space for kids. This used to be a family-oriented neighbourhood. It is emerging to be an overpopulated area. Unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of Essendon, Ascot Vale and Moonee Ponds being protected by being heritage listed. But the developers aren't going to be doing this. Obviously, they're doing it for a profit. He can still make a profit if it's 3 or 4 dwellings. There isn't going to be a shortage of homes in the area with number 4, 25 and 35 Winifred Street being developed. And you've still got Park Lane as well. But thank you.
Thanks, Marinella. I'd just like to ask Acting Group Manager City Development, Mark Hughes, to respond, because I think on the private waste management, because 2 objectors have raised that this evening.
Right, thank you, Mayor. So the proposal that is before Council has planning permit conditions in the recommendation that require a waste management plan. So should a planning permit be issued, which is a legal document, the land must comply at all times with the waste management plan, which requires private waste collection, which must occur on non-council days. If they're to depart from that, they'll need to come and amend the planning permit.
Thank you, Mark. I now call upon the permit applicant or a representative of the permit applicant to make a submission. So Andrew Gray, on behalf of the applicant in person. Yes, thank you, Andrew. And you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor, councillors and officers. My name's Andrew Gray. I'm a town planning consultant representing the applicant. In terms of the site at 1,154 square metres, it is a site that allows for 5 dwellings to occur with still being minimal change. We have a 39% site coverage and there's a 46% permeability. So the design of the development is representing minimal change. I would note that both 25 and 41 Winifred Street nearby have 5 dwellings on each of those sites, which are actually smaller in size. I think the development has responded to the street, providing 1 crossover, providing for a good front garden setback. The development has been centralised within the site, allowing for landscaping to be provided around the perimeter of the site. Right through the process, the applicant has worked with officers and internal council departments to deal with matters such as urban design, traffic, waste, landscaping and ESD. And you'll note in the officers' report that all those departments have provided their support for the application. There was a consult meeting that was held in relation to this application, and that was of great benefit to the process in our submission. And that led to a number of changes to the plans that have been supported by the officers in terms of conditions. And they also include, that you've heard about the visitor parking space, but as part of that visitor car parking space, the design of the development has been amended to break the built form between dwellings 1 and 2. There's also increased backyard areas for dwellings 2 and 5 for opportunities for landscaping. There's upper level reduction of dwelling 1, increased windows to the street to provide for activation and to provide a better urban design and neighbourhood character response. We say that the site provides for an appropriate outcome having regard for the on-site and off-site amenity outcomes for the proposal. The building set off all site boundaries. We believe that the building is well designed, it's architecturally designed, it's heavily articulated with building breaks to ensure that the visual bulk issues are minimised. Overlooking is addressed in accordance with Res Code. Overshadowing is minimised and landscaping is provided to an acceptable level. We say that the design is contemporary, but it reflects the character of the area in terms of materials and roof form. It's high quality design and materials. The ESD outcomes a minimum of 7 stars, including double glazing and water tanks with 12,500 litres in capacity for the site. In terms of car parking and access arrangements, these have been reviewed by council traffic engineers. They are considered to be appropriate. The private waste collection has been proposed in order to address concerns that have been raised about the number of bins associated with the development, and what we believe is that the waste collection arrangements will minimise the impact in terms of bins being on the street, being collected at other times other than the council collection. We support the officer's recommendation. We accept all the conditions in the recommendation and we seek the support of the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. If you just remain, because I think there's a number of councillors with questions. So, Councillor Hart, is your question for the applicant or do you have a question for officers? I saw your hand up first, Councillor Hart.
Thank you. I wanted an answer in relation to what Antonio was raising in relation to the sewage. That could be the councillor or the applicant. And my other question, which would probably be to council, is there's already demolition on that site. And one of the issues or part of the plan was the tree management plan. So I really wanted to ask about the fact that the demolition started, whereas part of the permit was that the tree management plan would go in before any demolition. So that does concern me.
We might throw to, this is Acting City Manager.
Thank you, through the Mayor. So, in relation to the question about the sewerage pipe through the site, I understand that there is an easement at the rear of the property and the development is not constructed over the easement. Any assets that need to be considered as part of the development process will be dealt with at the building permit stage, and that may require relocation of assets, it may not. And also, should the land be subdivided, referral authorities such as Yarra Valley Water will need to give their consent before the land is subdivided. What was the second question?
The second question was about the tree management plan, whether there's already been demolition.
Great, thank you. So there was an arborist report submitted with the application which showed all the trees on the site. I understand there was around about 20 trees on the site. That report graded most of the trees of having low retention value. That report was reviewed by Council's own arborist, who agreed with that recommendation. And the report, which is part of tonight's agenda, supported the removal of trees, noting that 7 canopy trees will replace those trees. The demolition and the tree removal that I understand has already commenced on site, neither of those things require planning approval.
Sorry, my question relates to the fact that there is a tree management plan on a council tree and I think adjoining trees. So that was, I understood, was meant to be in place before demolition. So that's, my question is about the tree management plan that I think is in the conditions.
So thank you, Councillor Hart. So I understand condition 6 requires the street tree and the neighbour's tree to be protected prior to development commencing. So that's a matter that we may need to raise with our enforcement team. But at this point in time, the other thing to note that because there is no planning permit issued, those conditions that are proposed as part of tonight's agenda do not have force and effect. But nevertheless, we'll ask our enforcement team to look at that, and that might be something that the permit applicant may wish to respond to as well.
Would you like to respond?
Thank you.
Andrew?
I'd have to get instructions on that matter,
Sure.
Mr Mayor. I do note that that condition. I do agree with Mr Hughes in terms of the condition would only apply when the permit is issued, and at the moment there's no restriction on demolition on the site because there's no heritage control. But look, I don't want to comment any further on that. I think what Mr Hughes has said to the council is appropriate.
Thank you, Andrew. Councillor Tapanos, I saw his hand up, but it's now down, so I'll just, okay. And then I saw Councillor Bolton's hand up.
I'd like to ask you, I know you said, and in the council report it talks about overlooking issues being resolved, but one of the objectors, Marinella, whose mother runs a family daycare centre, was talking about 2 particular dwellings with particular windows being a worry for overlooking. I mean, her request was for them to be replaced with skylights, but I'm just wondering if you could address that particular.
Well, thanks, Councillor Bolton. Look, we wouldn't accept, or it's council's decision, but from our perspective, we wouldn't like to see a condition requiring windows to be removed and be replaced with skylights. One is that I think that creates 2 issues. One is it creates just blank walls, which isn't a particularly good urban design outcome, but also it creates a poor internal amenity for the future residents of those dwellings if they have no windows and only skylights. And I think it's pretty clear that Res Code does set up specific requirements to address overlooking in terms of either screens or obscure glazing or a mixture. And I think the plans demonstrate that that is met. If council wants to confirm that by a condition confirming the overlooking to be met, that would not be objected to by the applicant. But yeah, in terms of the suggestions, we wouldn't support those.
Just can you repeat? You'd be fine with the condition on overlooking. Can you just say that again, a bit more detail?
Look, yeah, I think if condition 1 just had a requirement to ensure that the development complied with standard B22, which is the overlooking standard, that would allow the officers then to just confirm and double check that the proposal met with all those requirements and to ensure that it didn't have that impact in terms of neighbouring properties.
Would that be possible to include?
Yeah. Councillor Pavlidis, also, Councillor, do you have a question or is it resolved?
No, that my question was the same as Councillor Bolton's in relation to the overlooking. So it's been answered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Pavlidis. And just note that Councillor Carly Hannon is also attending online. Welcome, Councillor. All right, so we'll now... are there any other members of the... thank you, Andrew.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other members of the gallery who haven't spoken yet this evening who wish to address council on this application? No, no worries. Councillors, if there are no further questions, could I please have a motion? Councillor Bolton.
Well, I've got an alternative motion. I'll move the officer recommendation with a couple of additional conditions, but I would like this extra one, which officers will have to have some time to work on. My extra conditions are that there be signage added to the visitor car park to indicate that this is not a private car park, but actually a visitor car park exclusively. And the second one is a condition relating to the construction activity, particularly the parking of construction worker vehicles, but also construction vehicles for the site. Now, I know this doesn't resolve all of the issues, but I am concerned about the family daycare centre next door in terms of the parking of construction vehicles. And I'm also, having visited the site today, there is Damien, who addressed us earlier. He's got this development on one side, another development on the other side where he's blocked from exiting his property by a cement truck for a considerable period of time, and there's a development site across the other side of the road. So it's actually, if all three are being constructed at the same time, this could be an absolute nightmare. And I know we're only allowed to look at the, well, actually, should see if there's a seconder, but...
Well, yes, sorry, I'd like you to talk a bit longer just because we have the final point being drafted.
I can talk a bit longer if you need
No,
time
I
to
think,
draft
I think it's just been sent around, so we might see if governance can get that on screen as well. Did you send it to governance too? Yeah, great. So normally we wouldn't normally do that, but we needed to make this condition up. And Councillor Bolton, do you want to read it from your email? I think it's just landed in your inbox.
Oh,
okay, sorry, no, it's also up there now. Yeah, so...
So the extra one is simply that the upper floor windows nominated as obscured are to be fixed, or have, well, it actually specified the conditions of the overlooking clause, standard B22, and I understand that needs to be inspected by the council. Does it? Before the permit? To the satisfaction of the council, is that?
Thank you, Councillor Bolton.
Correct in interpreting that?
So that would require the plans to be changed, and what the condition is asking for to be in compliance with standard B22, which is the overlooking standard. So officers will check that before they endorse the plans, and the endorsed plans is what they must construct on site, including obviously overlooking treatment.
Yeah, that would yeah, that's what I wanted. So if you see if there's a second, I'll...
Yeah, so Councillor Bolton is moving the officer recommendation with those new conditions as highlighted there. Do we have a seconder for that motion? I see Councillor Riley with his hand up. Okay, so we'll start the timer, and Councillor Bolton, you may speak to your motion.
Now, I'm not super happy to be moving this resolution because, especially having visited the site today, and being a bit familiar with that area, I can certainly see the residents, the community's concerns about 5 units being too much on that particular block, especially with these other 2 developments going, you know, 1 2 doors away and 1 across the road. So I think this will be a major impact on the site in that area. But on the other hand, it is so rare to get a development application that is so compliant, and it's so rare to have a developer where they have made some concessions in response to objections that it's not really realistic at all to refuse it, and I can't see what would be grounds which would be more serious. Like, I don't think there's a case, or council's got a case they could argue at VCAT for removing one of the units. I think that is very rarely done. So there'd have to be a very good case according to the planning legislation we work under. And I've looked through and I just can't see that. So what I'm moving is some minor amendments. They're not going to go all the way to what residents are really wanting, but I'm hoping they will add a little bit of extra protection. My understanding from the council officers is that if the body corporate that's eventually formed once the units are built decides they want to swap from a private provider to the council garbage service, that they will have to apply for a variation in the planning permit. And I'm assuming the reason they're going for this private provider or private waste collection service is because of the issue with the bins and the bus stop being at the front of the property, so that there are restrictions on where bins can be emptied on the property and so forth. But I'm not excited about this proposal at all. I think the residents have got some valid concerns, but I just can't, despite lots of looking, I can't really see any valid way I can make any more major improvements for the residents. And I think maybe especially for the family daycare centre, once this is constructed, there might need to be an examination or approach to council about some extra protection in terms of parking. I'm not sure how many children are at the family daycare and what hours they get dropped off and picked up, but I think something might need to be looked at there if it's an untenable situation.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. Councillor Riley, would you like to speak to the motion?
I think Councillor Bolton's covered most of those issues. I don't think I need to add anything further, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Would any other councillors like to speak, or would any councillors like to speak against this motion? Or against this motion, Councillor Davidson? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. And thank you to the local residents who have attended tonight. I know it's taken some time out of your day to come, and I appreciate the phone calls and the emails that we've received. It shows you do care about the community, and attending tonight has been an effort, and I appreciate that. I think in line with what many of the objectors have said, and I know the area well, I walk down that street often, it doesn't fit in with my notion and my understanding of what minimal change would be for this area. I do think it is an overdevelopment, and I think it's excessive. I think something along the lines of 3 or 4 units would have been more appropriate, and it does not fit within the character of the neighbourhood. Now, I understand the arguments that it's going to be an uphill battle at VCAT, but given the context of the street and the broader understanding of the area that we all have as councillors, particularly councillors of the North West Ward, which is the area that I am a councillor for, I can't support this. Yeah, as I said, it may be an uphill battle at VCAT, and I do appreciate that, and I understand that. I understand the planning context that we operate in, but I can't feel confident in voting in favour of this. I can't feel confident that it's in the best interests of the community, the best interests of the residents, and in the best interests of the street and the broader community as well. We'll be voting against this application tonight because I think it's just too much of a stretch for a zone that is classified as minimal development. It's not minimal.
Thank you, Councillor Davidson. Do we have any councillors speaking for this motion? I know, Councillor Hart, you have your hand up. Is this to speak for the motion?
Against.
Okay, sorry. I'll just see if there's anyone speaking for the motion. Okay, Councillor Hart, you may speak against the motion.
Thank you. And I'm actually not, I can see the some of the qualities in the building, and I can see the developers' ability to try and address some of the concerns that the residents have raised, and I certainly acknowledge that, and I think this is a difficult one. But why I'm speaking against it is I think it actually, to some extent, shows the contradictions in our policy, where we've got something that's basically compliant and well compliant, and I understand that, but I feel that at some level we've lost control of sort of the policy as to what we mean by minimal growth. And I've noticed, I think that's a reoccurring problem that we have in coming to grips with what we mean by that. And I understand from the residents' viewpoint, the issues that they're raising in terms of the practical impacts. So it's not just so much about this development, but it's about the level of impacts that occur with multiple developments, and I think they just build on top of each other. And I think that's one of the issues that's at the heart of it. And while we've got 4, it's very difficult to say, well, 5's overdevelopment and 4's not. I think that's a really, really difficult one. But the cumulative effect for residents, particularly around Winifred Street, is going to be very high. And that's I think the problem that we're in. It's that creeping impact of what occurs for people. And yet I know that to be able to put an alternative resolution up and take that to VCAT, it'd be very, very difficult. So I certainly understand that, and I have discussed that with residents today. But I understand Councillor Bolton's position, but I also don't have that level of being comfortable enough to say that this is the right fit in the right place. And I actually think we need to begin to, I don't know, maybe the horse has bolted, but just really understand what is occurring in these minimal growth areas. And I don't think it's just Winifred Street. I think it's broader. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hart. Councillor Davidson, your hand is still up, sorry. Or is it
Yes.
new?
No. I would like to suggest an alternate and see if this would be agreeable to the mover and seconder, that one of the dwellings be removed so it is reduced to a 4-dwelling development.
Is that... Let's pause there for a second. Mark would just like to respond.
Through the Mayor, thank you. In respect to how you draft planning permit conditions need to be clear and certain, amongst other things. Imposing a condition that required the deletion of one dwelling would not lead to a certain outcome. It's not possible to draft a condition like that to lead to a certain outcome. We don't have the benefit of discussion plans or the agreement of the applicant.
Okay.
In that case, then my alternate would be for a refusal should Councillor Bolton's motion not be successful.
Thank you, Councillor Davidson. So you're foreshadowing a refusal if this doesn't pass. Great.
Correct.
All right. Councillor Hart, your hand is up. It might be left over from before. Do I have any other councillors wishing to speak to this motion? Panopoulos.
Thanks, Mayor Pulford. I'll just be brief on this and really echo much of what Councillor Bolton has raised this evening. So I think, a lot of the time we see often pretty average quality developments that are put forward, and that is by nature of the planning system in which we operate. So to be clear, this is about, the acceptable standards being met within the state planning system and within our planning scheme for our local government area. So whilst there may be, of course, things that we would perhaps rather see done differently, and, acknowledging what Councillor Bolton has said, it is quite clear that when you read through the officer's report and when you also see the amendments and the agreed amendments that have been reached through the planning and information discussion meeting, it is clear that in my mind as a decision maker, as an independent decision maker who has seen many applications of many different sizes over the recent years, this is actually quite acceptable. In terms of the area itself, it is undergoing change and there are difficulties there. I definitely understand and appreciate that. However, in regards to, say, those on-street parking issues, that's for a separate parking restriction issue to be sorted out within the council. So I encourage residents to reach out to us and we can talk about that on a different level. And so I understand that from a resident perspective, it seems like these issues are are interconnected. However, under the planning system in which we work, the on-street parking is actually a different issue and not entirely relevant for the application that we've got before us. So it's these things about how the planning system works in reality versus, I suppose, what we might think of as an outsider looking in. But looking at this application, looking at the way it's, we've got the tree protection, the management plan there, looking at the way that the overlooking and the setbacks have now been addressed, and also with the extra signage on the visitor car parking, I am comfortable to support this application and do think that it is acceptable under our planning scheme. So I think, I would urge councillors to support this evening for the reasons that I and Councillor Bolton have outlined.
Thank you, Councillor Panopoulos. Do we have a question or? Check with governance about that. Ija? Okay, so we have Councillor Bolton who withdraws her moving of that motion, but Councillor Panopoulos has said that she'll become the mover. All right. Now, Councillor Pavlidis, you have your hand up. Would you like to speak to the... Oh, sorry. Okay, so we're start. Sorry, just checking, Councillor Riley, you're still happy to second that motion?
Yeah, I am, thanks.
Yeah. All right, Councillor Pavlidis.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. I agree with all the comments that have been made tonight. It is a difficult application because it is compliant. However, I also agree with Councillor Davidson and also Councillor Hart in the sense that while the application is compliant, we need to also factor and consider the amenities of the neighbourhood and the street and the residents that it affects. And we've heard about the parking issues, we've heard about the overdevelopment, we've heard about the neighbourhood character. And to me, I don't think just because it is compliant, that's sufficient grounds to accept what is proposed. I believe that we need to try to retain as much as we can things that are valued by our community. And we hear it time and time again about overdevelopment, about overshadowing, about parking and about traffic. And I think we, as we have more and more residents coming to our municipality, these things are falling by the wayside. And I think at some point we need to start considering the impacts of those that live there already. So I will be voting against this application as well.
Councillor Pavlidis. Do I have any other councillor who'd wish to speak to this motion? Councillor, does any other councillor wish to address the meeting? No? We might move, given you're now the mover, Councillor Panopoulos, would you like to exercise your right of reply? You have up to 2 minutes.
No, I've got nothing further to add. I said it all.
Sure. Thank you, Councillor Panopoulos. All right. As there's no further debate, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Riley, Councillor Carly Hannon, Councillor Tapanos, Councillor Panopoulos and Councillor Pulford. All those against? Councillor Bolton, Councillor Pavlidis, Councillor Hart and Councillor Davidson. So that's 5 for the motion, 4 against the motion. I declare that carried. I will now ask the officer to outline the next steps. Thank you, Houston.
Thanks, councillors. The council has decided to issue a notice of decision to grant a planning permit for the construction of 5 double-storey dwellings, subject to the conditions contained within the alternative recommendation. Following the issue of a notice of decision Both the applicant and all objected parties will receive a copy of the notice of decision to grant a planning permit. Objectors will have 28 days to appeal council's decision at the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal. In the event that no appeal is lodged at VCAT, a planning permit will be issued. If a permit is issued, the applicant has 60 days from the date of issue of the notice of decision to appeal any conditions on the permit. Thank you.
That being the end of our business. Thank you, Houston. That being the end of the business for this evening, I now declare the meeting closed at 7:42 p.m. 7:43 p.m. Sorry. Thank you, members of the gallery. Thank you, members of the public tuning in, and thank you, councillors and staff.